We often think of bureaucracy as dull, grey, even comic. It comes from comes from one Greek word and one French word, so it's a bastard word. Bureau is French for desk, and kratos is Greek for rule. And while words like aristocracy, democracy, both Greek words, demos, people, aristo, best, are proper words, bureaucracy is, from the very beginning, a word that shouldn't exist. And it describes the rule of a desk, the rule of an inanimate object, and from there we simply move downwards as we confront reality, this tangle of forms and rubber stamps. Yet bureaucracy can be more than just tedious, it can be aggressive, and it can quietly crush people. And as we've seen with the heartbreaking death of the 23-year-old Ethan Scott Brown, it can push vulnerable people into despair. Ethan was a geography student at the University of Glasgow. In September 2024, the university told him wrongly that he failed to achieve the credits needed to graduate. He believed his years of work had come to nothing. On the day he should have graduated, he took his own life. Months later, the university admitted a tragic error. He had, in fact, earned a 2-1 honours degree. Bureaucracy is usually defended as neutral, just process, but anyone who's wrestled with a faceless system knows that it can act with aggressive force, not by shouting or threatening, but by withholding clarity, letters full of jargon that confuse rather than explain, withholding information on grounds of data, confidence, or whatever the rubbish is, passing responsibility, departments bouncing people from one office to another, being put on hold for 30, 40, 50 minutes or an hour, hiding behind process the system says no because an unchallengeable wall has emerged, or because basically the person who's dealing with it doesn't know how to progress. For Ethan, these 3 separate exam boards failed to spot an error. No one called him in, no one offered support when he reported struggling. The aggression here was not personal cruelty, it was the cold refusal of a system to check itself, to care, to notice a human being on the other end. Young adults at university are already negotiating pressure, identity and uncertainty, and add to that the message you failed, your degree is worthless, when they know they've worked hard. This is not just administrative error, a hiccup, it's an existential blow. Clinical psychology tells us that perceived hopelessness, the sense that nothing you do matters, is one of the strongest predictors of suicide, and bureaucracy becomes lethal when it creates hopelessness. An error is made, no one listens, the system insists it is right, the student feels small, powerless, unseen, and even when you prove that bureaucracy has gone wrong. The other day I had an insurance issue, and it turns out I'd been paying insurance for 2 years, although I had in fact cancelled it 2 years ago. And I only discovered that I thought maybe there was a problem, maybe the name had changed, because the nomenclature is constantly changing. You never quite know when you see a bank statement. And on this occasion I had a bit of spare time, I checked it, and yeah, it was something I'd cancelled 2 years ago. It took me more than a day to get the people to admit that I'd cancelled it, partly because the insurance was not in my name, and they weren't prepared to release the data about it. And yet I've had no apology. No apology. I've still not had the money. Apparently it will be released within 12 days. No offer of compensation for their stupidity. It's not the only bureaucratic nonsense. And the nastiness and the stupidity of the people in question beggars belief. The conversations that I had, and the amount of time I was kept on hold, and in consequence, my YouTube videos reduced to about 6 from 14 to 6 because I was just exhausted. I mean, I've also got another problem with customs in Turkey. I've got stuff trapped in customs because it's second hand apparently, and they don't know how to deal with second hand goods, and again, I don't care about a change in the procedures. What I care about is what actually happens, how this thing progresses, and there is madness. The bureaucrats are simply trying to make money, trying to grab an extra buck, and at the expense of somebody who's followed the system accurately. Young adults at university are already navigating pressure, identity and uncertainty. That is, university probably is their first experience of the menace of bureaucracy, and we in Britain should be pulling bureaucracy back. We should be obliterating bureaucracy. Instead, we're multiplying it in a way that would make Germany or Greece or Russia smile with recognition. Add to the message, you failed, your degree is worthless. I find it extraordinary. Like many large institutions, universities speak warmly about well-being, but too often this is branding, not culture. And Ethan reported mental health struggles. No one referred him to support services. No one seems to have asked, are you okay? This is the wider problem. Bureaucracies become self-protective rather than human protective. Rules are designed to avoid litigation, to maintain statistics rather than to ask, is this person safe? So accuracy is not optional. An unchecked clerical error can destroy a life. Process must be humane. Systems should flag distress and trigger contact, not just emails. And accountability matters. Families should not have to fight for truth after tragedy. Bureaucratic aggression is rarely loud, but it is relentless. And a silence that erases individuality is a silence that is wrong. It leaves people isolated against an unfeeling machine. Ethan's mother said he left this world believing he had failed. The truth is that he'd succeeded. That sentence should haunt every administrator, every policymaker. And frankly, if I had power, I'd close that university. Bureaucracy is not neutral paper and ink. It is an instrument of power. Used carelessly, it wounds. Used coldly, it kills. If our universities, if our governments, if our corporations want to be more than machines, they must see the human being behind the file. They must build compassion into process. Bureaucracy is there to support, to help our processes, not to take control of our processes to the exclusion of human beings. Otherwise, we risk repeating this tragedy quite visibly, quite invisibly, while telling ourselves it was just an error. It was not just an error, it was a human life.